Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Do you want to know what it is?
There's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
There's a special rug in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch.
He peed on my rug!
He peed on the dude's rug.
Do your worst.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I blessed that night. The world has changed. I know about that, and then I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that was lost, for now live. Na 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 na. Welcome to your feature presentation. I am your host, Heath Paul. That was our Elvish speak
special
that we decided
edition.
to start off the episode. Yeah, that's the. This is the extended edition to the podcast. Welcome. Yeah. There is no cut.
And who could have guessed Andrew could not stop from laughing to deliver the lines correctly? Cut.
There's something wrong with you if you don't laugh. So we are talking about new movies coming out this weekend and about new Lord of the Rings movies on the horizon. So it's going to be a good episode. Pull up a chair, pop your unsalted, unbuttered popcorn.
Yeah, buddy.
Join us.
Julie.
With me, speaking perfect English, is Andrew McKay.
Hello, Heath. It's a pleasure to see you.
It's a pleasure to be seen.
Wow. We got some pretty great movies coming out this weekend.
Yeah, we do. Let's go through them. So let's start off with Borderlands.
Sure. So,
and no synopsis.
Oh, you got it. I'm shutting up.
Well, no, I was gonna say I'm not gonna read it, but I just feel like we can talk more about the movie more than the synopsis is gonna be. I mean, this is gonna be a movie where it's a video game adaptation that's an open world game. So the story is kind of like, if you like the video game, if you like the trailer, like go check it out. You know, I don't think the synopsis is going to pull you into this movie.
That's a good point.
What do you think about it? Like, you've seen the trailer? Like, are you excited about this movie?
Not really. Not really at all, actually. It's tough to be excited for, or even to go see a movie adaptation for a video game that you've never even picked up one time.
Yeah.
I have not touched these games ever. And so I feel like that adaptation is like for fans, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think this is a movie too. If I was going to encourage someone to go see it who hasn't played the game, I'd say this is definitely like Guardians of the Galaxy type.
Oh, really?
Ensemble feel. Like that's the kind of thing. So that's kind of like what it is. It's weird because the game is such an open world. Like there's story, but it's not really a campaign type game.
Right. That's
like this is going to be the story. So I think it looks interesting. I'm excited because I love Borderlands. I'm definitely going to go see it. I am very nervous.
Yeah.
Like the trailer looks good, but you get that vibe sometimes when you watch a trailer. Like, I don't think this is going to be a good movie.
Yeah, you've got so much space to create a story inside of a world that you could kind of flounder. Like World of Warcraft, the Warcraft movie, the first Dungeons and Dragons movie. The second one did better, but when you have all that freedom, you can kind of not do well.
Well, I think that's the thing too, that right now we're in this time of like Hollywood tries to pull properties. Excuse me, my gosh. Because it's like, oh, it's based on this. So if you're a fan of this, come see it.
That's what this episode's about.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's if it doesn't if there's no set thing it's following, I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, oh, it's a Borderlands. If you like Borderlands, come watch this movie. But they just creating their own story, right. So it's completely like walking into another movie. that was just created and written in Hollywood, you know? Like, it's not like we're going to do an adaptation of Harry Potter. So like, oh, I know that story. I love that story. I'm going to go watch it. Mm-hmm. And something that Gary Honda said in our interview with Cosmere Junkie that really stuck with me is he said Harry Potter has enough clout that if just book fans went to go see the movie, they would make money.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that was such an interesting idea of like fandom and bringing to a property, you know? I don't know. That's just been in the back of my head ever since that episode. I'm like, that's really interesting because I think there's some things that people love, but I'm like, I wonder. I don't think Borderlands has enough of a following that they would make money if only people who played Borderlands watched that movie.
Yeah.
So that's why you get Jack Black is in this movie.
Right. And, you know, I am a big Jack Black fan. Love that guy.
Oh, I love him. He's great.
Wow. All right. So Borderlands, we also have It Ends With Us. This is adapted from a Colleen Hoover novel. If you're a reader, you probably know Colleen Hoover, or at least if you haven't read a book, like Heath and I have not. They've been lying around your house because your wife reads them.
Yeah.
So
very, very familiar with her covers.
Yes.
The pastel Colleen Hoover covers.
Very pretty. Lily overcomes a traumatic childhood to embark on a new life. A chance meeting with a neurosurgeon sparks a connection, but Lily begins to see sides of him that remind her of her parents' relationship. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. This is definitely a movie. If my wife wants to go see it, I'll go see it.
They'd be like, yeah, let's go to the movie theater. I'll never say no to a trip to the theater.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think I would ever say no to it. If my wife is ever, do you want to go see a movie? The answer is yes. Yeah. Blake Lively's in it, though, and I think she's a great actress, so go see that. If you like Colleen Hoover, if you like books,
yeah,
go see it.
Wow. So we're 2 for 3 for a media being adapted into film that its original source is not like TV or film. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Third movie for the weekend is Cuckoo. If you listen to our episode on most anticipated summer movies, this was on my list. It is about a 17-year-old girl who's forced to move with her family to a resort where things are not what they seem. So, like deep woods, like I said, forced to move. She kind of starts like wandering around this like town, and things get real scary, real spooky, especially when it gets dark, from what I can tell of the trailer. You may recognize Hunter Schafer from Euphoria, which was like insanely popular the last few years. But they're in this movie. And Dan Stevens, apparently. I haven't seen Dan Stevens since The Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah. Well, it took him so long to get out of the costume.
Oh, every hair had to be plucked. Man.
They actually genetically engineered his body to be more beast-like, so they had to kind of backpedal and, he wants to do other movies.
It's all, you haven't seen the extended cut of The Beauty and the Beast? Oh, that's embarrassing. Sorry, huh? Anyway, so this is probably, this is definitely my number 2 most anticipated horror movie for the year. Right behind.
And that normally, I was about to say, that normally is a big statement, but we've had so many horror movies this summer. Like,
we surely have.
But this is like, so you'd put probably horror at the top of your want to go see, though. So would you say this is your number 2 most anticipated movie you want to see?
Oh, I'll say yes.
Do it. And your first most anticipated movie, say it with me, is
Harold
Alien.
And the Purple Crayon. What? It was last week.
And the Purple Crayon. Speaking of Zachary Levi, I've got a story I got to tell you.
Alien Romulus. Someone on Facebook Marketplace tried to sell me the standard, like from Walmart, Alien Romulus poster for $100. Rolled up, didn't come with a frame because he said it was rare. And I was like, okay. He was like, do you want to meet up today and I can sell it? So I looked it up on eBay, and I can get it for $15 in a frame. And I was like, I'm not. That's crazy. I'm not doing that.
Why did he reached out to you specifically?
Well, I reached out to him because he's got a ton of movie posters. There's a super rare Spider-Man Twin Towers poster that they like stopped printing and pulled off the shelves for obvious reasons. But it's that one, and that's like, okay, that's a rare poster. You could probably charge a pretty penny. But that just a regular like Romulus poster, he was like $100, and I said, no thanks. So that's my store.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you said no.
So next week, when you watch our full YouTube video show, if you see an Alien Romulus poster, you know I messed up.
Yeah. You don't even say anything about it. It's just like there's a Romulus poster behind you. You're like, oh,
that's
cool.
Weird. Someone took $100
anyways,
out of my bank account.
No, just keep rolling. Yeah. Just keep rolling. Just don't talk about it. Yep. Well, cool. Like, let's jump right in then.
Absolutely.
So, which, side note, we do need to talk. I think we should do like a best horror movies of the year at the end of this.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many horror movies and thrillers. Like, there's just like a lot of good stuff coming out, and it's really interesting. We've talked about this before, but I do think it's a lower risk budget thing that so many of these are coming out right now, because there's so much lower of a risk to make, because like so many big movies are just tanking right now.
I think we're in a real defining era for horror again. Like it always comes in waves where you get a summer, a year or two where people are really defining what horror will look like for the next 10 years. And I think that right now there's some really great breakout movies that are kind of redefining what people are into for the genre. And it's going to look like that for a little while. So we'll look back on the summer of 2024. I went to go see Cuckoo in theaters.
And I'm so pumped for Alien Romulus, too.
Yeah.
We're going to have fun.
Shout out also to Long Legs. I don't think we even mentioned that movie in our summer movies. Have you seen Long Legs?
No, but I was going to say, I heard some heat about that, too.
Man, all right. Different episode. Save it for the pod, Heath.
Save it for the pod, the other pod.
The horror pod.
Right? The later pod.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump right in. So, Lord of the Rings movies. There's reported multiple movies in the works.
Interesting.
We've got what's it called? My gosh, I shouldn't have written this down. The Rohirrim, like it's the anime.
Yeah. The Rise of the Rohirrim.
Rise of the Rohirrim. About Helm Hammerhand, who is the statue in Helm's Deep, if you've seen the movies. So that's an animated movie coming out this year. That looks cool. It's interesting because it's an animated movie done by Weta Digital. So this is definitely something different than we've seen, but it's just another Lord of the Rings property, which I'm all about, but we've also never really seen it's been quite a while since we've seen a Lord of the Rings animated movie. The animated movies, man, they're weird. Have you seen any
from like the 80s? Is that what you're talking about?
The Hobbit. Yeah.
I went to a brewery one time to meet up with a buddy, and we had to switch seats because
one single
time I went to a brewery.
One time,
and
one time I went to a brewery,
and they put my popcorn, and I walked out.
Is that salt on that popcorn? I'm not interested.
No, that's not my. I had to switch seats with him because they were projecting the animated Hobbit onto the wall that I was facing. So we had to switch because I wasn't listening to anything he was saying. I was like, I got to be a good friend and actually listen to our conversation. Switch seats with me.
What's the song they sang? The Goblin song.
Oh, all I know is like bend the knives.
Where there's a whip, there is a way. There we go.
What? That's terrible.
Yeah, it's like I've seen the meme about like when the guy says, "Just write me a song," and he writes an absolute banger.
Yeah.
Man, the Lord of the Rings, the animated movie, has a lot of rotoscoping, which is like that technique where they film it live action and then they turn it into like some type of kind of like a motion capture thing. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they do it especially with their ring wraiths. And just like look up like Lord of the Rings rotoscoping, and just it's really interesting how they shot it. Like they make them scary in it. It's like this kind of unnerving, but it adds to like the creepiness of like the ring wraiths and stuff. But yeah, so that's our little segment on cartoon Lord of the Rings. But also the elves in The Hobbit are like weird, like Trino people. Yeah. But like Elrond is completely normal.
Like, he's the handsome one.
Yeah,
like Keebler elves.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of in the works. So there's discussions of more Lord of the Rings movies in the works, but we don't know anything about any others except for one, which is The Hunt for Gollum.
Yes.
So what we know is that this is a directed by Andy Serkis. That's what it's going to be. It's produced by Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh, which is the director/writing crew of the original Lord of the Rings movies. I have not seen anything anywhere that these people are going to write it, but I imagine it has to be, because why would you get the writing team of Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh and not have them write it? Like, I guess they could all three be producing it, but like that's a writing team.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they're going to write it. It's The Hunt for Gollum. So the timeline is actually tricky. So we need to talk about the timeline. Oh, this is a movie where Aragorn is searching for Gollum.
Yes.
During the events of The Lord of the Rings. So the interesting part about this is there's been a lot of actors. I just saw today Elijah Wood is interested in returning if they want him to return. Viggo Mortensen is interested. Ian McKellen, he had kind of a sad quote about basically like, if I'm still alive, because he's in his upper 80s, and so all these actors, all the original actors are interested, but even McKellen said, which I think is the most telling, there's not even a script yet. Like there's not anything developed. So they talk about this movie being in late 2025, which I would just take with a grain of salt because it's not even shooting yet. So we don't know. So yeah, I guess what are your initial thoughts on this project?
Yeah, so my first thought is that they kind of have two windows that they could go. If I get the dates wrong, Lord of the Rings superfans, correct me. Around, I think it's like 3004, Aragorn and Gandalf connect and begin their search for Gollum, their hunt for Gollum. And so this is all like, this is unfinished tales stuff. This is like a sentence here, a sentence there in the books, right? Almost none of this is from any of the movies. So this is just like opportunities, I'll say. I'll clarify that. So the first opportunity would be after Bilbo's birthday, Frodo has the ring.
111th birthday.
111th birthday. And he's just mad chillin' for many, many, many years in the Shire. And Gandalf is kind of running around trying to figure some stuff out, like things are occupying his time. But they, at one point, like he teams up with Aragorn and he says, like, we need to find this creature because he knows, like, where this master ring is, basically. Like, he got a hold of it, but he's since lost it, so we need to find out who has it. And obviously, Gandalf thinks that Frodo has a minor ring. Not at all does he think that he has the ring to rule them all.
Major ring.
The major ring.
Major ring.
So there was like a 3-year period in the book, in Unfinished Tales, I think, where they hunt together up and around Mirkwood. They like chase Gollum around. And I believe there was a huge pause. Aragorn stopped I think for the funeral of his mom. Like his mom was dying, so he went back. I'm getting into the weeds here.
The weeds?
We're going. Anyway, Aragorn stops. Gandalf learns, he gets a lead on how to identify the ring. So he's starting to think, after his visits with Frodo, you're not aging. So this is, the first bit is like before the Gandalf thinks Frodo might have it. That's their option for the hunt for Gollum. The second option, I think, is the better option, in that Gandalf suspects that it's the ring with Frodo. He knows that Sauron has spies surrounding the Shire, animals and birds and stuff and all that stuff. Aragorn is kind of hunting on his own, like they're connected but not like together, because Gandalf is in Minas Tirith in the libraries, and we get a glimpse of this in the movie.
The year 34, here follows the account of Isildur, High King of Gondor, and the finding of the Ring of Power. It's come to me, the one ring, it should be an airline to my kingdom, and all those who follow in my bloodline shall be bound to its fate, for I will risk no hurt to the ring. It is precious to me, though I abide with a great pain. The writing upon the band begins to fade. The writing, which was once as clear as red flame, has all but disappeared, a secret now that only fire can tell.
Whoa. Round of applause. Round of applause for you. So I think that was impressive. You really got that.
I think I said airline instead of
line. Heirloom.
Airline as a instead of heirloom. Airline.
So those are my two thoughts. Is like you have two spots where you could make this this movie happen. Definitely, it's going to be hard to bring those actors back and have them look younger than they did almost 30 years ago. 25 years ago. So that would be tough. And I honestly I'm not opposed to recasting. But that's my initial thought, is like there are two kind of sections where they could put this story. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say it is interesting because I don't think they want to break canon with the Lord of the Rings movies,
correct,
which is what, Peter Jackson, like this is that team that was involved, so like I'm sure they don't want to do their own thing. Like the Rings of Power, if they would ever touch on any of these areas, I think they would, like they have kind of free license because like it's their version, right? But the big difference here is in the book, there's decades. I think it's like 15 years between Bilbo's party and when Frodo leaves.
Yeah, I think
with the ring.
So 3018 is when they
know the dates.
Yeah, dude, is when Frodo leaves the Shire. I think it's 17 or 18. And Bilbo gets the ring 60 years previous to that.
Right.
And in 3004, which is the kind of that first window, it's only been a few years, maybe 2 or 3 years since his party. So I think he turned 111, like right around the turn of the century. No, millennia. So that's kind of like the rough timeline.
Yeah. And so, which this is kind of where the book timeline is different than the movie timeline. Because the book, they have so much time, they could do whatever they wanted within that, like the Hunt for Gollum, Mm-hmm. But movie-wise, like it's very short between Gandalf being like, you have the ring, let me go check on some stuff. Right. In the movie, it seems like weeks, maybe months.
Yeah, I would say months would be as long.
Yeah, even just from where he goes, where Gandalf travels, it has to be at least a bit of time. But in the books, it's, years and years, which doesn't mean that there's not, but it seems like it happens pretty fast in the movie. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting where the timeline is located. This is not something that really grabs me as a story I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, like if you're like, what's the most interesting part of unexplored Lord of the Rings storytelling? This would not be my top list. Yeah. But I think to me, I I do trust in these people.
Mhm.
Like, we've talked about The Hobbit. I think The Hobbit was kind of a weird mess because it was supposed to be Guillermo del Toro was directing, and then he backed out. And so Peter Jackson kind of had to step in.
Mm.
And then I think there was a lot of studio pressure to make it into 3 movies. And I can't even remember. Unfortunately, I can't remember who said this, but one of the big things they said was the Hobbit feels like they tried to make the book, The Hobbit, into the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You know, it was a simple, smaller, more kiddish adventure that they tried to make into an epic. And it's like that kind of makes all of the push and pull feel.
Yeah.
And there's other critiques we could make, but I think that's some of the issue. But I think these are people, Weta, Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, all these actors, they love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Andy Serkis, great director, great actor. Like, I think, to me, I think this is in the hands of people who love this property.
Yeah.
So The Hunt for Gollum seems like an odd choice, but I feel like I do trust that there's a story they want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
In this.
I do really like Andy Serkis as an actor and a director. And I'm curious if like which I feel like I keep dividing this into like options. But there's a period where both Aragorn and Gandalf and Sauron and his orcs are hunting after Gollum. It's like a race. Like, there's one creature that knows where the ring is, and we have to be the first to get him. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of go like towards that race against time thing.
Yeah.
There is like I think it was like a period of 50 days where Aragorn had Gollum tied up and traveled with him to meet up with Gandalf so that Gandalf could interrogate him. So Aragorn captured him, took him to Gandalf. Gandalf interrogated him. And this was before Minas Tirith stuff. So, like, this could be, like, Frodo's just chilling in the Shire. And, like, this is maybe, as far as the movie canon, maybe this is before the birthday party. And Gandalf just gets word that, like, there's a creature that knows where the Master Ring is. And they just go after it. But there's literature for Aragorn and Gandalf capturing Gollum, interrogating him, and then Sauron attacks that place, and they capture him, and that's in what Tolkien has written. That's when he gives up information to Sauron. But again, in the movies, like, Smeagol knows the name Baggins, and he doesn't give Sauron the name Baggins. Like a traveler gives the Witch King the name Baggins. So there's like all sorts of stuff, and I feel like if we just stick with the
Gollum says Baggins.
Yeah, so in
the book,
in the movie, Gollum says Baggins, and then they send out the Nazgul. They go, okay, Baggins, Shire. As far as like the book, in combination with Unfinished Tales and like the Hunt for Gollum stuff, I believe from the book that the Witch King gets the name Baggins from like a farmer or some traveler on the road. So I can't remember if Smeagol or if Gollum says Shire and gives them a direction, but I do know that he did not give them the name Baggins. But that's like, this is all like semantic stuff, and I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said this is like Peter Jackson's canon for the films. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was pre-birthday party, Aragorn and Gandalf, like here, they team up and they try and get the ring or information.
Okay, so for movie canon, though, if it's going to be movie canon, I think this has to be after the birthday party.
Oh, in the months between. Okay.
because he says, "My precious Bilbo." It's been called that before, but not by you.
Yeah. Oh, that's
you know.
good.
So that's I
good.
think
I like that.
there are many magic rings in this world, Frodo Baggins. None of them should be used lightly. So that's the first time in the movie
canon that Gandalf admits he has a magic ring.
No, I guess because the Hobbit, he sees Bilbo put the ring in his pocket, and he goes, you know, his whole thing about like, oh well, whatever it is, glad you're safe.
Yeah.
So I think Gandalf has known since the Hobbit that Bilbo has a magic ring.
Mm-hmm.
In the Lord of the Rings movies, I think the Bilbo's birthday party is the first time he outright suspects this is the one ring.
Correct. Yeah.
Or a more powerful ring. Mm-hmm. Because it's been called that before, but not by you.
Yeah.
Like,
but how does he know that? I feel like he would have to have an interaction with Gollum. To know, like, the precious, where did you hear that? Who told you it was called that?
But movie-wise, what he goes off and then he goes, like, there's questions I need answering. Yeah. He goes, I searched everywhere for the creature Gollum, but the enemy found him first. So that's what he states.
Oh, so it's like that.
Yeah. So technically, they'll be breaking canon if Gandalf finds Gollum. Because I think lore-wise, Aragorn is the one that finds him. Aragorn and Gandalf team up.
Right.
Bro cop movie. High five. Look for Gollum. Gandalf gets called off by Saruman.
Yeah. Yep.
To go chat. And then Aragorn is the one that finds him and tries to bring him.
And is that why they meet the Prancing Pony? Because Aragorn is coming to tell Gandalf, like, I lost him? Or what?
I don't recall book-wise.
Well, movie-wise, do you know? Did we get an answer in the movie of, like, why was Aragorn in the tavern?
I don't think we really get that in the movie.
Just being shadowy
terms. Which the only reason I bring that up and say it that way, and I think same thing for you, is because it's open to interpretation with another movie like this. So they could say, Gandalf could be like, by the way, if for some reason I'm late, go to the inn at the Prancing Pony.
That's a very good impression. Wow.
Does that comfort you?
It does, yeah. Could you do my voicemail?
You're listening to, you've called Andrew McKay. Does that comfort you? Just any voicemail. You reached Andrew McKay. Does that comfort you? It's like, hey, man. Like, yeah, I guess.
I guess it's good I hit the right number. Anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's interesting because there is, in my opinion, there is a limited space this movie could take place if it's not going to break canon from the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
But you've got, like, if you're only going to stay within book parameters, you've got like 20 years to do this. Mm-hmm. We don't really know the story except kind of what's outlined in some of this, you know, the appendices and other works. But all the actors are saying they're happy to return. I imagine they're going to try to make that work. I mean, we saw them with Christopher Lee, who they used a stunt double to basically every time he was walking, it was a stunt double.
Are you serious?
And the only time, yeah, like if you watch The Hobbit behind the scenes, the only time it's actually him is when he's sitting in the chair. It's crazy. They did so much
just
like body double
there. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, like to me, I mean, Ian McKellen is so much tied to Gandalf.
Yeah.
This would be the 7th movie he's played Gandalf, and he's just so good. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's tough because, yeah, recasting is such a tedious topic because I think it's like you want it to be good. And there's some stuff like, you know, we've talked a lot about Star Wars recently, but James Earl Jones is still voicing Darth Vader. And he doesn't really even sound like James Earl Jones right now. Like, he's aged so much that, like, Rogue One James Earl Jones doesn't sound like 1977 James Earl Jones. Right. Which is weird for something like voice acting because I think you really could replace them and they would actually sound more like the original character.
Especially with AI and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. They could de-age, I think. but I don't know. I don't know if I want that or what I want, to be honest. But and then I also don't know because like Elijah Wood's like I'll play Frodo, and like Viggo's like I'll play Aragorn, and Gandalf's like I'll play. We don't know actually how many characters they're going to use. Right. Like you have, in my opinion, you kind of have to use Gandalf and Aragorn character-wise, but we don't know. Maybe they're going to be like, this is Gimli's story. Gimli actually was the one that just like write their own fanfic.
Hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, so like that's kind of like our thoughts for that upcoming movie. Mm-hmm. What do you want it to be though? Like that's what we know, I guess, so far. Like what do you hope it's going to be?
I'm hoping
what do you want to see?
I'm hoping for, assuming Aragorn is the character that's hunting Gollum, I'm hoping for like Rambo style Aragorn. Like he's setting traps in the woods for like scout orcs. Yeah.
Coated eyes pop open.
Yes. He's like hiding up in trees, dropping down on people. Like I want to see him go absolutely crazy. 1 on 20 orcs, but like in his element of like the woods and stuff, you know, and like lean into him being a hunter gatherer. Like,
yeah,
there's obviously a good number of those scenes in the movies of him like checking tracks and discerning a
What's
lot.
this? A ranger cut off his guard.
Yeah. So I would love that. Viggo Mortensen plays Rambo.
Yeah. When you say that too, I'm realizing we've never seen Viggo Mortensen, Andy Serkis in the same scene together. We've never seen Gollum interact. Oh my gosh. If you don't see him in the same.
Oh no.
Wait, is OSHA May?
Oh.
And May?
Yes, they are.
The power of Manny. There's a lot of cool original actors that have not interacted. Like Gollum has not interacted with a lot of our fellowship, you know. So like seeing Ian McKellen and Gollum together, like Andy Serkis, like that's a scene. Wow. Like so I don't know. It's weird. So I guess what do I want from this movie? Like, man, if you put Viggo Mortensen, Ian McKellen, Andy Serkis, these 3 people are on a journey. Mm-hmm. That's going to be so much interesting dialogue and acting. And I'm like, I'm good with that. If they want to talk about what's going on in the world, like what is with those blue wizards? Are we going to find out? Like, hey, Gandalf, by the way, you know, Gollum messes with them about the blue wizards. Like, oh yeah, just, you know, put that idea where the blue wizards went, you know.
I don't even know what you're talking about. What?
The blue wizards?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
So there's 5 wizards that came to Middle Earth, Andrew. And we know about 3 of them.
Yes.
But there's like the blue wizards that are not really in any story. They went east. So they think they interacted with like the Haradrim and the Easterlings, but we don't know what happened to them, what they did.
There's plural?
Yes, there's 2.
The blue wizards.
They're buddies.
Oh, those are the 2 we're missing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
So more every day.
Add that to my Lord of the Rings repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Tolkien never really talked about them. Like it's not really clear what he even intended for those other wizards. So because we know like Radagast and Gandalf and Saruman, but yeah, it's weird because I'm kind of like waiting to see like what is this movie going to be about? Is it just going to be a 2-hour Aragorn searching for Gollum? You know, like it's Lord of the Rings, so I know there's got to be some battles in there.
Yeah.
Especially if they're kind of banking off. I hope that they're okay with this being a smaller scale movie.
Absolutely.
Like I hope they're not being like, we need to have a Helm's Deep level battle at the end.
Yeah, that would be disappointing.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some action for sure.
I think that's why I went to the Rambo route of like you can have really cool, like low impact, like the whole of Middle Earth didn't hear about Aragorn and Gandalf's adventure because it wasn't huge.
Yeah,
you know.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trusting, like I said, this would not be one of my top Lord of the Rings stories that I need to see, but I'm trusting with people that love this property that I'm hoping that they have a story to tell, and a good story to tell. Off the top of my head, I kept thinking, like, if they were really trying to go off of Lord of the Rings, quality, and like they want something like that property, why don't they just show us what happened to the Lonely Mountain during, the events of the, Return of the King? Like, the Elf King and like the King under the Mountain have to defend the Lonely Mountain from a siege. Like, that's already epic and awesome, and you've just set up Erebor. Like, that seems like such a no-brainer for just, like, capitalizing on Lord of the Rings. But I hope, and I think it'd be really cool if we just got a smaller story, like a beginning of the first hour and a half of the Fellowship kind of story. Like, this can be its own thing, and it'd be cool. And then, Aragorn is looking for Gollum, and Rambo style, like checking, things, and like I'm sure fighting orcs along the way, interacting with ring wraiths, and like really cool kind of things, and then ends with him going to the end of the Prancing Pony. That'd be really cool just to tie in.
Throw in a Rogue One like ending where it just butts right up into that. Yeah.
Oh, it'd be perfect.
That would be great. Yeah. Wow. Very exciting, honestly.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our episode. This is a fun upcoming. Like I said, it's supposed to come out in 2025, but I would not even pay attention until they've started shooting. Yeah. So you don't know. But it seems very likely at this point that this is coming. It's been announced, and this seems to be in the works. So, something to get excited for. So before we end, Andrew, why don't you tell us what we're talking about next week? Because it's hard for me to describe with your genres and directors.
Yeah, so we have, tune in next week. Heath and I will be presenting a list of our top 5 movie genres, and we will do the tried and true Gorley method.
Yes.
When I say a genre, let's say I list my number 5, and Heath does not have it higher up on the list towards number 1, and I get to talk about the genre, I will include my favorite director of one of my favorite genres. So if number 5 is action-adventure, and I say, Heath, can I talk about action-adventure? And you say, yes, I hate action-adventure, you may speak.
I say, get them out of here.
Get out of
here. Get those
here.
movies out of here.
Then I say, this is my favorite director in the action-adventure genre. Here are some things they've done and why I love them. So, it'll be pretty tight. We'll probably keep it under an hour, I think, if we're good and snappy. But it's going to be a really fun conversation, I think.
Yeah. Why don't you take us home, but in your British announcer voice? You've been workshopping this voice, so take us home in that voice.
I've not been workshopping this voice.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. We have just experienced another wonderful episode, if I might say so. You can always find a show on YouTube, full video show, as well as podcasts, wherever you may find a podcast. It is there. As well as Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Thank you. Go see a movie. Back to you, Heath.
Go see a movie.
I'm obnoxious.
That's why I'm here.